New York, 1928, a city where every block breathed tension, as if secrets were hidden in the walls that could not break free. Skyscrapers shone like stars, bars sang jazz, and streets danced the Charleston. But between luxury and poverty, between progress and decay, in the depths of the earth, in thin pipes, in the silence of sinks, lived a shadow. Where the light was bright and the darkness invisible, a metaphor arose that did not just echo in conversations, but seeped into the blood. Vampire water. It was not a term from a laboratory, not just slang. It was a psychological response, born at the intersection of disease, culture, and human fear. It did not describe physical murder, it embodied it. And that was its power. A city where water killed, without odor, without sound, without visual signs of pollution. In the Sloan Maternity Hospital in 1915, there was an outbreak of typhoid. In a short time, 25 people were infected, including patients and staff, and 2 of them died. The source was water contaminated with fecal matter, through which Salmonella typhi spread. This was not an isolated case, but it became a symbol of danger, especially when it turned out that the carrier was the infamous Typhoid Mary Mallon, who worked as a cook under a false name. Outwardly, the water was transparent as glass, without odor, without the illusion of pollution, as if the world was in order. But analysis showed, in it were colonies of Salmonella typhi, a bacterium that does not cause simple malaise, it burns out. Typhoid is not just a disease. It is air that does not breathe but swallows. It is silence that inhales. In the sanitary inspector's report, it read, "The liquid killed silently like a shadow." This was not a description. This was a witness. Imagine, you drink water that you do not check, that you do not control, that you do not feel as clean water should be felt. You think everything is fine. And then a child dies. A mother goes mad. And you do not know that what comes from the tap is not water. From the tap comes a second breath. And this breath is not yours. It does not return. It consumes. Before the 1920s, there had already been many such incidents in New York. In 1872, in certain districts, the level of typhoid was so high that the authorities were called the shame of the capital. By the 1920s, the situation had improved, but not disappeared. In 1924-1925, in New York, Chicago, and Washington, there was a major outbreak of typhoid associated with contaminated oysters. About 1,500 people were infected, and 150 died. This was not the only problem. Reports from the health department indicated frequent cases of infection through water, especially in areas with imperfect sewage systems. City authorities then acknowledged mechanical filtration is insufficient. Without chlorination, it is not protection. But modernization measures were postponed, not due to lack of knowledge, but due to budget. Because the poor do not pay taxes, and therefore they cannot be objects of improvement. Such houses are like monuments of oblivion. Such taps are like eyes closed for centuries. In the slums of the East Side and the Bronx, where taps often did not work and pipes cracked. Families placed dozens of tin buckets on windowsills and balconies, not for collecting coal, for rainwater. One elderly Italian woman from Mulberry Street said, "Rainwater, acqua del cielo, water from the sky. God gave it, so it is clean. And from the tap, who knows whose sweat, whose urine, whose blood?" This was not a joke. This was a fundamental conviction. Rainwater is sacred. Tap water is doubtful and also unpredictable. Engineers did not deny. In 1925, in the Bronx, malaria broke out, starting from one such bucket. Rainwater is not always clean. Standing water in buckets became a breeding ground for disease-carrying mosquitoes. But it is safe in the mouths of faith. But the threat was not only bacterial. Water leached lead. Many old pipes are lead. From the 1880s. Their inner surface is covered with dark, corrosive deposits forming scales that can be dark like soot or coal. These deposits are the result of a chemical reaction of water with metal. Water drunk from them gradually poisoned. In 1926, on Delancey Street in the Lower East Side, a 12-year-old boy from a family of immigrants from Sicily was hospitalized with severe anemia, convulsions, and loss of speech. Lead level in the blood, 85 micrograms per deciliter, more than 8 times higher than the modern threshold mark. Doctors discovered water from the kitchen tap was the only source of liquid for the whole family, including preparing baby food. The pipe under the sink is lead from the 1880s. The child had been drinking from it since 3 years old. In 1925, the American Medical Association published a report on hidden poisonings in the urban environment. In Harlem, a family of 10 people lived in a building from 1879. 8 children had chronic Saturnism. Doctors linked this to long-term consumption of water from lead taps and pipes. The City Engineering Corps then refused to finance replacement. Said there is no unambiguous evidence base. In Boston and Chicago, since 1920, programs for dismantling lead lines were already in operation. And in New York, it waited for decades. In the apartments of the poor, especially in pre-reform buildings, kitchen sinks often did not have a siphon. The inspector's report from 1927 describes a typical find on Orchard Street. Under the sink, a direct opening into a wooden trough leading to a common riser without a water seal. With each drain, a gurgling sound is heard, as if something is swallowing. Residents call it the breath of the house. This is not just a technical error. This is life breathing back. Methane, hydrogen sulfide from the sewage penetrate the dwelling. The building begins to feel. It is hungry. It is alive. It is like a vampire. Engineers had known for a long time. But replacing drains required opening floors. And the city postponed, citing a lack of budget for improvements for non-taxpayers. By the 1920s, the theory of microbes was already well known to scientists and educated people, and public hygiene campaigns spread knowledge about bacteria among the population. However, many ordinary people, especially immigrants and residents of poor areas, had limited understanding of microbes. Diseases often seemed like heavenly punishment, inexplicable, inevitable. When an epidemic broke out in a district, conversations were not only about salmonella, but also about unclean water, disease-causing air, or simply about death knocking at the door. Each new outbreak of typhoid is confirmation. Behind external safety hides danger. Because it is psychological protection. A vampire is not just a myth. It is an image. In the 1920s, the vampire became a universal symbol of mystery, temptation, and death. It personified a hidden, ancient, invisible threat. Vampire bats drink blood, and most of their liquid is blood. This gave reason to connect water and blood. And in culture, the vampire was popular. The play Dracula by John L. Balderston, adaptation of Bram Stoker's novel, premiere in October 1927. The entire 1927-1928 season, the performance on Broadway. 261 performances. Hype. The theatrical Dracula is charismatic, almost charming. His power over the night, ability to control animals, subdue women's will, left a deep mark in memory. But this was only the tip of the iceberg. In the 1920s-1930s, the horror genre flourished in the United States. Writers Howard Lovecraft and August Derleth created grim universes where humanity is just a minor detail in the plans of ancient, hungry gods. In their stories, beings feeding on life force or blood. Direct heirs of vampire mythology. And in society, a new type of woman appeared, flapper. Young, independent, daring. They smoked, danced the Charleston, wore short dresses. Their freedom was perceived as a threat, seductive, but deadly. And the image of a vampire fit perfectly into this stereotype. Beautiful but dangerous, enchanting and killing. In wealthy homes of the Upper East Side and on Fifth Avenue by 1928, kitchen filters had already appeared, bulky devices like the Birkefeld filter, standing on buffets like luxury items. They contained ceramic cartridges with silver impregnation and were advertised as a shield from invisible enemies. In the Saks Fifth Avenue catalog for spring 1928, such a filter cost $32, almost a third of a worker's monthly salary. This was not protection from diseases. This was proof of status. But even among the elite, trust in the tap was conditional. In the memoirs of a society lady, a record was preserved. At a dinner party at the Astors, the water in the carafes was always boiled twice. First in copper pots, then cooled with ice from a special source in Westchester. They whispered, "The mayor drinks from the tap." We do not. The city rejected the proposal for free installation of filters in schools, motivating it by unwillingness to form a false sense of threat. The vampire in American culture of the 1920s was perceived as an outsider. From Eastern Europe, detached, with arrogance, with an aristocratic voice. For New York, a city of immigrants, this was especially relevant. In November 1927, in the Washington Heights district, where families from Galicia and Bukovina settled, the sanitary inspection recorded a sharp increase in refusals of drinking water. In an interview with the newspaper The Jewish Daily Forward, one old man said, "Back there, in the Carpathians, water from the spring is sacred. And here, from the ground where the dead walk, water is silent, but it remembers. We do not drink it. Let the old Americans drink. It is not their blood it wants." The inspector noted in the report, the metaphor of bloodthirsty water is widespread among Eastern European immigrants. It is persistent, transmitted orally, and correlates with a low level of trust in municipal systems. The metaphor worked as psychological protection. It turned an invisible threat into a tangible image. Instead of vague fear, a person saw a clear picture, a being drinking not water but life. If an epidemic started in a district, it was much easier to say, "This is because of vampire water," than to delve into engineering errors. In January 1928, the New York Evening Post published an interview with Dr. Ellen Farrell, an epidemiologist from Columbia University. In the draft of her report, found later in the archives, a crossed-out phrase was preserved. "Perhaps it is time to admit, the metaphor of vampire water, though unscientific, is more effective than any bulletin. It makes people boil water, and that saves lives." Probably, this image was most often used by those who suffered the most from bad water, residents of poor areas. For them, the risk of getting sick is everyday reality. Leaking pipes, the smell of sewage in the sink, distrust of authorities. For them, vampire water is a warning passed from mother to child, from neighbor to neighbor. In 1929, Sister Catherine Doyle, who survived during the epidemic at Sloan Hospital, gave testimony in court in the case of engineers' negligence. She said, "We called it vampire water among ourselves in the wards at night. Not because we believed in monsters, but because we felt, when you drink, something leaves you. A strength, a complexion, a hope. Water took and did not give back. Any woman who saw a child die from a sip of clean, transparent liquid would describe it that way. Because it is a reaction to reality. One medical reality, water could still kill. New systems provided clean water to the rich, but for the poor, it remained dangerous. 2. Cultural context. The vampire became a universal symbol of hidden danger. The play Dracula, Lovecraft's books, images of flappers, created an atmosphere where the boundary between life and death, purity and dirt, reality and myth became blurred. 3. Psychology. People transformed uncertainty into concrete images. Vampire water made fear manageable. Instead of an abstract threat, an understandable enemy. In 1931, when the United States Supreme Court allowed New York to use the Delaware River for water supply, the city announced, the era of vampire water had come to an end. This decision opened the way for the construction of the Delaware system, which began to be implemented in 1937 and was completed by 1944. Water, the authorities said, finally ceased to be a threat. In response, the newspaper The Sun printed a short note. The city announced, "The vampire era is over. Water no longer drinks, it serves." The next day, 117 letters came to the editorial office, all with the same question, and what if it just went deeper? Today, tap water in New York is safe. The metaphor sounds like a strange echo of the past, but it is its unusualness that makes it valuable. It allows us to see how people coped with anxiety, how science and myth entered into dialogue, how even in the era of progress, the simplest thing, a sip of water, could become a source of horror. Vampire Water is not just a story about 1928. It is a lesson about human fear, about how we perceive a threat when we cannot see it, about how myth becomes a tool for survival. And in this is not just a story. This is a memory that even in the era of progress, everyday things can hide risks. And that fear is not always about what kills. Sometimes it simply reminds us of the fragility of everyday life. Thank you for watching this video to the end. If you liked it, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Good luck and see you in the next episode.